Hi, my name is Simran and I am a member of the communications team. I'm pleased to be joined by Dr. Ian Cross. Good afternoon, Dr. Cross, and thank you for your insightful speech. I read that you used to be a GP for 25 years before you joined Doctors Without Borders. There's such a vast difference between the two environments. Do you ever want to go back to living a quiet life in Leicester, or do you appreciate seeing the immense breadth of humanity despite how brutal it might sometimes be?
Okay. A couple of things.
Yes.
Before my 25 years as a GP in Leicester, I used to work overseas with another organisation and with the British government.
Yeah.
So I've got a background in wanting to work overseas, and I've done that for quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
I still do have to work as a GP in Leicester in order to keep my registration as a GP, as a doctor, because if I lose my registration in UK, I can't work as a doctor in the UK, then which country is going to allow me to work in their country? So I have to do a little bit of general practice every year to keep my my registration up. So I do actually do a bit of general practice. Yes,
no, I read about that, but I was just wondering if you would ever just want to go back to just being a GP, or like just focus on that again, or?
Well, I really enjoyed being a GP when I was a GP.
Yeah.
I tended to take an interest in difficult parts of general practice. I did a lot of severe mental illness and a lot of infectious diseases like HIV. So I had a little bit of understanding of difficult to treat conditions when I went overseas. Working overseas is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
You feel that every day you've done something to help people.
Yeah.
You really have. Sometimes in general practice you can do a whole morning surgery and you think, well, what good have I done? I mean, I might have helped a few people, but you know, you're actually at the sharp end. You're seeing people. Your input has an enormous impact, whereas perhaps as a GP it doesn't have so much of an impact.
Okay.
And that's very exciting to me.
Well, I mean, from what you've already just said, you've seen so much. And I mean, I read your blog on the Doctors Without Borders website. And one story which stood out to me, which is one that you also mentioned in your speech earlier, was about a horrific shooting of a young girl where the bullet passed through her skull and into her right eye. Fortunately, she was able to survive the ordeal, and that's a testament to your work and the other medical surgeons who helped.
Yes.
But indeed, I'm sure you've got more stories to tell, but after seeing all of these atrocities, how have these experiences affected your own views on morality and or influenced your own philosophy of life?
Gosh. Some people do horrific things to other people, and I can't stop them from doing that. Yeah. If I can do anything to mitigate what they've done to help people afterwards, then that's good work, I think. But some people do horrific things.
I mean, it's a tragedy.
It's awful, yes. And if you see it, the first day I was in the camp, 4 people died. Now, 4 people died in one day, and I'm on duty, and I'm trying to resuscitate them, and they're dying on me, and I'm thinking, whoa, you know, I'm useless. I'm no good. I can't do this job. And then I think, now wait a minute. You know, if you weren't here, who would be? You've got to just do your best. You've got to just knuckle down and do your best. And after a while, it sort of, yes, people died, but you just kept on going. You did what you could. You can't save everybody. You can't make everybody better. You just have to come to terms with that. I suppose being a GP, you see people die, you help people die when they're elderly or they've got cancer or something like that, or if you're working in a hospice, you're familiar with death. But this was 4 people dying in one day, in 12 hours. You know, that was just horrendous for me. And it just opened my eyes. I just had to get on and just do the work. I
mean, even if you're making a small difference, you're still making a difference.
Yeah, and the people are, you know, they are so grateful for whatever you could do. Even when they bring you children that are, say, handicapped or have got brain damage or something, and nothing's been done for them while they've been in another country, and then they come to you, and you check them out, and you see what's going on, and you say, this is the problem, unfortunately, we can't fix this. They're just so grateful that someone's taken the time to explain to them, to examine their child, to do everything they can in their power to help.
Yeah.
Even if there's nothing to be done, the people appreciate it.
I mean, that's just incredible. But I mean, just following on from that, the Nobel Peace Prize recipient and Myanmar's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Aung San Suu Kyi, she received quite a lot of criticism for her silence towards the Rohingya crisis. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who's also a Peace Prize recipient, stated in an open letter that if the political price of your ascension to the highest office in Myanmar is your silence, then the price is surely too steep. Indeed, with the Rohingya crisis considered to be largely ignored by most of the world and its political leaders, do you think that humanitarian efforts are enough to help make a sufficient, sustainable and positive difference to the situation?
Well, that's what MSF is trying to do. Yeah. We're trying to keep it in the limelight. We're trying to bring it to the attention of the world media. Yeah. But you know, we're not a political organisation. Yeah. We can't put political pressure on Myanmar to do this. We can't make Aung San Suu Kyi say anything different. I mean, we try and be independent and neutral. We need to be able to work in Myanmar. Yeah. So if we were to criticise and say this is genocide, this is horrible, this is this, that would make it much more difficult for us to be able to help the Rohingya who are still left in Myanmar, or people who are repatriated from Bangladesh into Myanmar. We want to continue to help those people, so we have to be as apolitical as possible.
But do you feel that your humanitarian efforts sometimes are interfered by political and diplomatic actions? And if so, what actions do you think need to be taken from the political front?
Well, I'm not a politician. I don't know how this works, but I understand that if you want a country to change the way it's doing something, you've got to have some kind of carrot or stick approach, and you've got to have levers to be able to make things change. Yeah. I don't see any levers we have in Myanmar to be able to change the way they're acting. It's we're impotent. If a resolution comes to the United Nations and Russia and China veto it, well then what can we do? We can't do anything.
Do you think, since there's not a visible leader in Myanmar to make a change, that the international community should do something about it?
Well, the international community has done things about Aung San Suu Kyi, the freedom of the city of Dublin, and Oxford University, and various other things have been withdrawn.
But do you think that's enough, just to revoke?
Well, it's a statement of what they feel. They feel betrayed, but it must be very difficult being a civilian leader, political leader in a country which is still governed by the military, and the military hold all the power. And one wonders if the country has actually made great progress in the last few years since elections, and they've actually got a degree of democracy that you might want to keep that going. If you were to criticise, I'm not a politician, but if you were to criticise the military and say, right, we're going to put all those generals on trial for genocide or whatever, I don't think that she would last very long, really, in power.
It's easy for us in the West to focus on the ongoing violence and, as you mentioned in your speech, the demonisation of the Rohingyas. But could you tell me more about your image of the Rohingya people, since you've been able to have first-hand experience with them?
They're just like ordinary people. The mothers love their children, husbands love their wives, they care for their families. Story. An old lady was coming with her family, and they just crossed through the Naf River and got into Bangladesh. It was dark. They couldn't have any torches or lights because the Burmese soldiers who were chasing them would shoot at them. They lost their granny. She was left in the forests. They told some UN workers who went and found her. She was lying there. She'd had a stroke in the past, so she couldn't walk. She had cataract, so she couldn't see. She was partly blind. She was being eaten by dogs. The UN rescued her, brought her to the hospital, and we treated her, we sorted her out, we treated her wounds. We couldn't fix her cataracts, we couldn't fix her stroke, but we made her comfortable, and she was back to how she was before she came across. And the family came, and they were absolutely, they were just overjoyed to see their granny again, that she was still alive and that we'd looked after her. There were tears of joy, and that's a human response. And these are, I don't see them as being refugees, I see them just being as human beings.
Of course. Well, as you say, violence is something that's kind of always been hand in hand with our human history. I mean, we've seen genocide, ethnic cleansing, and many other atrocities. And without significant change, we're most likely to continue to see such horrors. Do you think that the fact that we've become more accustomed to seeing such atrocities so often through the rise of internet and social media that we've started to become desensitized to such events as a society? Do you think that it's easy for us to acknowledge what's happening in other parts of the world, but because they don't directly affect us, we can easily choose not to do anything about it?
I think because the internet has made things, and the global media has made things more visible to everyone, is good, is beneficial.
Yeah.
I don't think it dehumanizes. I don't think, oh no, another massacre, or another few refugees dying in a leaky boat in the Mediterranean. I think people still feel concern and compassion about those events. I reckon that a lot of the genocide and ethnic cleansing and everything, it's been happening for years, but we just haven't heard about it, we haven't seen it, the cameras haven't been there.
Yeah.
Now they are, all the evidence is there.
I mean, that kind of brings me back to the point of we can acknowledge what's happening in other parts of the world, but then do you really think that a lot of us, as in the mass population, actually want to do something directly about it? And if so, do you really think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I see the situation in the UK with people wanting to be more insular, want to withdraw from Europe, not liking foreigners, that kind of thing. I think that's dreadful.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just the way things are moving. Maybe I'm out of touch with that.
I mean.
But I'm sure that atrocities are going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
Horrible things are going to happen, whether it's in Nigeria with Boko Haram, whether it's in Sudan, whether it's everywhere. I mean, MSF's going to be there, and they're going to try and mitigate that. But
I mean, that's all you can do.
That's all we
just
can
try to
do.
make a difference as big or small as you can. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.